Hey friend, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and today I'm going to give you 3 tips for mixing soft rock piano. Today we're going to be looking at 3 tips for mixing soft rock piano with just EQ and compression. And this is going to help you make sure you can sit your piano in the mix, but that it still feels big and full on its own. But before we dive in here, if you're ready to go a little bit deeper into the mixing process and really start to expand on your mixing strategies, then definitely check out the link in the description for my 7-step mixing checklist. This is a free PDF guide that will walk you through the entire mixing process step by step to help you get professional and radio-ready mixes without any more of the guesswork. Like I said, completely free guide. You can download it using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and take a look at mixing soft rock piano. I'm going to hit play here to start so you can hear what the piano sounds like inside the finished mix here, and I'll also solo it up so you can hear what our finished piano sound sounds like on its own as well. So here's our finished mix for this track.
Love that keeps me centered, keeps me in this place. 'Cause your love is more than I could ever ask. It's my saving grace.
You can hear it's kind of a ballady, soft rock style track, and the piano sounds really, really full. It almost sounds like it has reverb on it to give it some depth, but there's not reverb on it. It's just the EQ and compression we're using here to get that fullness out of the piano. So 3 tips here. Tip number 1, of course, as always, is getting rid of what we don't need. So let me take off all the processing here, and let me play you the raw piano, and we'll dive into tip number 1 here. You can hear it's not a huge change in the piano sound. We're really preserving the bigness of the raw piano track. So when I say getting rid of what we don't need, it's very, very subtle moves here. So I'm taking off the compressor on our last EQ here. This is just our first EQ. Getting rid of what we don't need in step number 1 is just 2 moves here on this piano. A high pass filter and a dB cut, only a dB cut at 315 hertz here. I'm gonna play both of these together here because it's pretty subtle moves. They don't make big impact by themselves, but we clean up the bottom end and just tuck out just enough of this low mid area to clean up our piano sound and make sure it's not too muddy as we blend in other instruments. So here's without these 2 moves and then with. You can hear what these 2 moves really amount to is feeling like there's more high mid energy in the piano because we make more room in the frequency range for that stuff in the high mids and up on the top end on this piano to shine through on this track just by cleaning up a little bit of the low mids here and rolling off everything we don't need in the bottom end. Although this is a ballad track and the piano is kind of the main focus here, it's the main melodic instrument, we still have a bass guitar that's going to take up a lot of bottom end energy. So we don't want the piano fighting with the low end on the bass guitar down around 80, 70 hertz here. So rolling that off and then just a tuck of the low mid here. That's our tip number 1, is getting rid of what we don't need. Now tip number 2 is compression. We're going to put a little bit of gentle compression on here just to control some of the peaks on the piano. If we zoom out here, you can see our piano track is pretty even all the way through. There's not a lot of big jumps in volume, but there's still some peaks and valleys here on the piano that we want to even out just a little bit. We want to keep it natural sounding. The more processing you layer in on the piano, the less natural it's going to sound. So we want to preserve that natural bigness of the piano by being gentle here with our compression. We're only going to do about 3 dB reduction on just these bigger peaks here. I'm using this 1176 style compressor, the FET Comp in Studio One. I'm running it at 0.55 milliseconds on the attack. So medium slow attack for this unit, but it's still a pretty fast attack in general. 4:1 ratio, and then the fastest release. So we're going to get in there, we're going to grab these peaks as fast as possible, and then we're going to let go as fast as possible to leave the rest of the piano unaffected here. Only about 3 dB reduction, so take a listen without, and then I'll kick the compressor in. So now you start to hear some of the bigness in the piano. You start to get that kind of natural reverb sound that you're going to get from an instrument like this, a piano that's naturally melodic and that's naturally reverberant. The reason we get that is because we have a fast attack and fast release. That means we grab these bigger peaks and pull them down, and then as we bring up our output gain, we bring up the release and that extension on the piano. So it feels like we have more length on the piano than we actually do here. That's what gives us that natural reverb sound in this piano. So take a listen one more time. Just 3 dB reduction here, and you can watch it's only on these bigger peaks on the piano. Gives us some evening out of the volume of the dynamics of the piano. It also gives us a little bit of depth by giving us that natural reverberation. That's tip number 2. Now tip number 3 is to go back post-compression and add anything we need. So additive EQ post-compression here. The first move we're going to make with our additive EQ is adding a touch of brightness and shine to the piano here. We're up at exactly 4K, and we're going to do about a 4 dB boost here. This is going to give us some shine and some brightness on the piano so it stands out in a thicker mix like this. So I'm going to hit play here, and I'm going to add this boost in so you can hear without it, and then I'll click this in. 4 dB at 4K. You can hear it's only a 4 dB boost, but it's adding a ton of shine and a ton of brightness on the piano here. Now, if it was a thicker, more classic rock style mix, this is where I would leave the piano. It's got that shine and it's got that brightness that's going to help it cut through in the mix, that high mid energy that's going to help it stand out, but it doesn't have a ton of bottom end and it's not carrying a ton of weight that's going to propel this mix, because we would have other instruments going in a heavier classic rock style mix. But because it's more of a ballady style song and this is our main melodic instrument, I'm gonna go back here, post our compression, and I'm gonna add some weight to the bottom end. So 2 additive EQ moves, we're adding some brightness, and then we're coming back at the end and we're adding a little bit of low end weight. So we're down at 80 hertz here, which is where our fundamental is that we're boosting on the bass guitar. So we're matching our bass guitar and boosting that same frequency on our piano. It's gonna blend our low end together, and it's gonna help our piano feel a little bit bigger. Only a 1 dB going in on this piano here, but take a listen to the difference it makes in the bigness of the piano. So as much as this is a frequency move, it's also a feel type of move. When we hit those downbeats and the left hand in the piano comes in, we want to hear that little bit of weight of the left hand hitting those lower notes. And just the dB down here at 80 hertz gives us that little bit of bigness and that weight as the left hand drops on the piano. So take a listen. I'll play the entire finished piano and I'll ABR processing here on it. You can hear it's not a big change across our piano. We're making little moves. The biggest things we're doing are that 4 dB boost of brightness up in the high mids and that 3 dB of compression. Those are our biggest changes on the piano in terms of tone and dynamics. Our other moves are just subtle things to take the piano that much further. I'm going to throw it back in the mix and I'll ABR processing against the rest of the finished mix.
Love that keeps me centered, keeps me in this place. 'Cause your love is more than I could ever ask. It's my saving grace. Love.
3 tips for mixing soft rock piano. Here we go. Just to review, tip number 1 is we're getting rid of what we don't need. So that's high pass filter and pulling out a little bit of low mid energy here on our first EQ. Tip number 2 is gentle compression. We don't want to ruin the natural sound of this piano. So only 3 dB reduction here with the FET comp. And then tip number 3 is our additive EQ. We're going back, we're adding that brightness in the high mids, and we're adding a touch of bottom end to give the piano some bigness in this track. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're ready to take your mixes to the next level and really start dialing in your strategies as a mix engineer, then check out the link in the description for my 7-step mixing checklist. This is a free PDF and it's going to help you get more professional mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next video.